So my name is Grzegorz Piechota, and I understand that probably if the pronunciation is too hard for you, it usually is, so it's Gregory. It's much easier to call me just Gregory. And it's called Special Projects Editor and a head of social campaigns at Gazeta Wyborcza. I understand it means nothing to you, it means nothing to me. You know, this is just a name of the position, and my job in short is just to make people love my newspaper. And today I will be trying to seduce you. So let me just start with a short introduction to my newspaper, what it is. You know, the history of this newspaper is going back to 1989, to the round table talks between communists and former opposition leaders from Solidarity movement in Poland. They just met for the first time and they started to talk together how to change the Polish political system and Polish economical system at this round table. And the main goal was to have the first independent elections on June the 4th of 89, and it was a major event for this for Poland. For the first time, candidates that were not approved by the Communist Party were allowed to run for elections, and it was such an important event. And for example, this is a picture taken in the city of Krakow, and this nun is a member of a convent that didn't allow its members to come out of the convent since the Second World War. So for the first time they allowed them to come out just to take part in these elections. And the main reason to launch my newspaper, that is called Gazeta Wyborcza, that means a newspaper for elections, is in fact to present the candidates of a solidarity movement. That was the main goal for this newspaper, just to present candidates and maybe present some other news. You know, the news was not the most important part of the offer of this newspaper. But very quickly after the elections, it became the most popular newspaper in Poland, and people felt that maybe it's not a, of course the name was a newspaper for elections, but on the other hand, elections are hopefully will take place, many more times than just once. So maybe it's a good idea just to keep this newspaper and to keep people and the public informed independently about what's happening in Poland and the world. And the first editorial meetings were having place in an old nursery school, because the first editorial office for this newspaper was an old nursery school. So here you see the editor-in-chief of this newspaper, a former dissident Adam Michnik, who is just sitting in the sandbox, and you can imagine, the toilets in this nursery school. Over the years, the things improved, and today we have one of the most advanced newsrooms in Poland. But I can tell you that the change of this newspaper is really very much connected with what happened in Poland. So if you look at how the protests looked like in the early 80s in Poland, of course today we don't have to go in front of the tanks. We just can vote if we don't like something. And if you compare the experience, very basic experience of shopping in the 80s, and this is you may not understand, but it's a meat shop, and the lady is just presenting the offer to customers, so it's open. Yeah, so this is the 80s, and of course today it's completely different. This is one of the latest shopping centers in Warsaw. It's called Golden Terraces, and people were standing very early, like at 4 a.m. just to when the shop was open, because there were some promotions where they were selling flat LCD TVs very cheaply. So people were standing, in the queues like in communism from 4 a.m. And of course, the Poland itself is also improving very quickly. It's just looking differently, and also the media offer is a little bit wider than it used to be. Like this is the Polish General Jaruzelski, who was the boss of the army and the communist state, and he's just announcing the martial law in 1891 that was when the communists wanted to break down the solidarity movement, they introduced the martial law, and the tanks were brought to the streets to really fight the opposition. And today, of course, you can see anything, you know, on the net. This is on the television. This is a Polish Big Brother version, and they are just having sex, you know, and everybody could see it in the television. The newspaper is providing a little bit different content. However, it's also completely different than it used to be 20 years ago. When we started, Gazeta was just a black and white newspaper with 8 pages. Today it has more than 150 pages per day, and of course everything is full color. So it's a completely different newspaper, and the staff, you know, used to be like 30, 50 people, and now it is, total company is like 3,500 people, yeah, so it's a completely different place. And when we are talking about whom we reach, so the paid circulation is at about 350,000 copies, and throughout the week we reach at about 4 million readers, and it's quite a young readership, much younger than it is for other newspapers. And on the net we are even bigger, because we reach at about 11 million real internet users, how we call it in Poland. So we reach at about 63% of all internet users in Poland, and it's a very young audience. And Agora is not only a newspaper only, because we have some magazines, we have an outdoor company, we publish books, CDs, DVDs, we have radio stations. So it's a multimedia group. It's still owned by mostly by Poles, because it's controlled by the founders, who are former dissidents, and it's also stock listed on a stock exchange, so anybody can be an owner of this newspaper. And what's the share of some foreign companies is very small, because there is only an American company called Cox that has less than 5% of the total share. So when we are talking about Polish media landscape today, of course it's wider than it used to be 20 years ago, but it's completely, the term wide is probably too narrow, I would say. The choice is really unlimited. When we are talking about TV channels that are available in Polish language, at the moment there are 140 registered. Yeah? And we are talking about cable channels, free-to-air channels, digital channels, and we are not talking about internet channels, because if we would add internet television channels, it would be much higher. I'm just talking about TV channels that are controlled by the state regulators. And when we are talking about free-to-air radio channels, we are talking about 230. When we are talking about daily newspapers, and I'm just talking about audited circulation, so the newspapers that are big enough to be commercially viable, so they need a circulation to be checked by a third-party association. Yeah, so there are also some newspapers that are, you know, just too small, and they are not selling advertising, so nobody demands them to check their circulation. So just 64 daily newspapers. Of course, magazines, 420 are big enough to gain advertising, and the total number of magazines is like 70,000, but we are talking about, you know, it's very small magazines. And I just today in the morning I just checked how many web pages are indexed by Google with the domain .pl, that is for Poland, and it's 300 million web pages. When we look at the daily media consumption in Poland, we see that there is a big digital divide. The internet penetration in Poland at the moment is like 56–57%. So 56% of total population has an internet access. And there is a huge difference about their media consumption. So here you see the time spent on media by people who have an internet access, and you see that they are watching much less television than the others. They are listening a little bit more radio, also through the net, than the others. They are more media heavy users, so they are using more newspapers, more magazines, and of course they spend at about an hour a day on the net. And when we are talking about the rest of the population, they are just mainly watching television. Yeah, this is their entertainment medium. So in fact, when we are talking about digital divide, what we see is that internet users are just better educated. They probably live in larger cities. They are people who are earning more money, and that's why they are heavy users of other media. Yeah, they are just, you know, the elites of the country, so they are heavy users of everything. Yeah.